obviously promoting the truth, promoting the things that have happened, so that we can steer clear of those in the future for future generations and for ourselves. And then hopefully equity can be dispersed. I know it's hard for people these days, to like admit some of this stuff. And I know like it's hard for people to even watch a video for more than like 5-10 minutes. So if you made it this far, thank you so much. Please keep staying tuned. You can really learn something. He has so much experience. I have a little bit of experience, but combined, we're going to try to really lead the charge to advocacy for all this stuff: mental healthness, financial literacy, aquatic farming, aquaponics, aquaculture. Just be the people out here that are doing that, man. I think the next few interviews we're going to do and do a little bit more about the aquaponics. I want to get people seeing some of your designs, seeing how you implemented them, some of the pros and cons of aqua farming, and what are some of the things that they're going to run into while they're installing these, because this is probably the only way that people are going to get fresh food in the next 10-20 years. But today, once again, still Black History Month. We're staying on it.
Well, there's a lot of creativity going on amongst the culture.
Yep.
During Black History Month. For instance, over in Phoenix, Dr. George Brooks has about, last time I counted, about 90 aquaponic farms in Phoenix. But Phoenix is the only city in the whole country that came up with a food plan, right?
Okay.
And their food plan included every city department that had some input into it, but the outcome of all of that input was they have over 90 residents now that has little aqua farms in their backyard.
Jeez.
They're growing their fish and their veggies, so plant-based, protein-based. For those 90 people, Dr. Brooks just came up with a little simple pool, if you will, 300-gallon pool. I think the system maybe costs less than $1,500 to put in.
Jeez.
You got your clarifier, your pump, your timer, your floating rafts, and then whatever fish you're gonna grow, or shrimp. And then they're growing tomatoes and other viney crops, melons, right in the desert.
Dang.
So there's that type of effort being going on, and then you have Will Allen. He's kind of like the godfather of aquaponics, what he was doing up in Milwaukee. A lot of people uses his models now, but Chicago is doing a lot of urban farming. I know some people there. There's some guys over in Portland, Malcolm Shabazz, who is coddled together a whole group of black farmers there that are growing food. He's got a lot of grants this year. So, there's a lot going on all over the country in terms of black urban farmers. We just don't know about, right?
Right.
And that also leaks over into the cannabis space, because, we got shut out on that market. But for those people that want to grow 99 plants, you can still do that.
Yep.
and gift it to someone so that you ain't breaking the law. But there's a way around doing all of this stuff. It's just a matter of what it is that you want to focus on doing. But as I said, I think the big picture is for a group of brothers, sisters to come together and apply for a grant, and pull some capital together, build a 50,000, 100,000 square foot urban farm market. Will do very well.
Yeah, I think I've had a lot of people come to me asking about the cannabis space and investing in it, but this is really where we need to be kind of reassessing. Like, I know real estate, all this stuff that that they push, that they say that we should invest in, always sounds nice, but at the end of the day, you can invest in a restaurant and a farm and cut your costs down to almost nothing. Put some solar panels outside, have your fish, growing your veggies, and then sell your fish. I mean, there's ways that you can do this, and at the same time, you're basically setting the whole. You're blazing that trail.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that Brooks did in Phoenix was, if I'm not mistaken, I think he got a grant for like $100,000 from EPA of all places, right? Which then led to him coming up with a curriculum. And the university, I think it was at Mesa Community College is where it's located. So that program, I went there a few years ago. And so he's got all these students coming in and, they got accustomed to the aquaponics. And then I think he was either commissioner or something. He got involved with the city council, and that's where the food plan came in. And to me, that was an eye-opener of what other people of the culture can do inside cities. I noticed I was in Cincinnati a couple of years ago. I was on like the 18th floor in an old raggedy hotel, but looking down, what just really made me feel good, I saw some rooftop gardens.
There you go.
I mean, in Cincinnati, right? Exactly. And I'm like, yeah, now this is what, the chef was out there harvesting some spices and herbs and whatever. So, we get that going on in LA, where there's a good climate, it's not cold. LA is ripe for an explosion of urban and agrotherapy, which, a lot of people need desperately, given how compacted and how, how huge that city is, and people got 2-3 cars, and you can't even move around too much. It's just so tight, right? And that's a lot of stress that everybody is carrying around every day, and a lot of it could just be totally just wiped out if they promoted more urban farming.
Yep.
And now, don't get me wrong. There's quite a few urban farmers in LA that I know of that are doing real good, but it needs to be on a larger scale, because you got about
so many people.
Yeah, and you got about 23 cities inside of the county of LA, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, you got all. I mean, I think that's just so insane when you think about it, because outside, when you look at the media, LA is bad, LA is democratic, it's being, the Dems are doing it, but then it's like, okay, what are you doing now? Like, instead of, we got into this position where we would complain so much and just shoo the problem to a different foot and not really look at the problem for where it is right now. And it's us. We have people who can invest in urban farming, urban agriculture. We have the technology. We have the blueprints all over the world. But people still wanted to say, oh, well, it's their fault that things are bad. Well, if you have the wealth and you decide to do nothing with it, if you decide to just stick with your safe investment instead of actually trying this way, in my opinion, you're just as guilty.
Just as guilty.
And you know who you are. You know who you are. If you made it to this point, you know that we're speaking to you directly. And it's all of our jobs. I mean, I'm here, I'm sitting with you. I've done this research. I've seen these facilities. I mean, they are the answer to like so many different problems. Homelessness, economy, supply chain, financial. Like, everyone can benefit from doing these simple things.
Exactly. I mean, look. So one of the problems that I have with, like I said before, it takes the same NPK to grow veggies as to do cannabis, right? So why not pass a law or amend this current law and have every one of these big growers, the cultivators, to start growing 15, 20,000 pounds of fresh veggies every year to give to food banks.
It's insane. It's insane that we can't do that. We can't. How can we not? Like, we have these facilities that are just built for cannabis, and most of the stuff is getting trashed. I mean, it's mostly it's sitting there getting trashed or sold in the black market. So why not turn these high-end cultivators into? It's crazy.
Yeah, man. I mean, like you said, so every time they harvest, they throw away all of that cocoa fiber, right?
Yeah.
You pull the root out of there and reuse it to grow some food in, right? I mean, all of that stuff going to the landfill.
Yep, going to the street. It's just wasteful. It's wasteful.
Yeah, I mean,
we got a guy that came and picked up some of the trash every now and then. He would always come back and be like, "Oh man, our fruits and veggies are so big this year because we pump them with so much nutrients." But it's like, to get that actually started and to get that passed through a regulation, because everything is controlled now. Everything in the cannabis industry is controlled through metric, and if you don't log certain things, you could get fined or lose your license. So it's like, shout out to Green Light Productions in Vegas. They've taken the steps to kind of reuse their waste and their compost, but like they're like the only ones.
Wow.
They're like the only ones who are like actually making that shift to reuse their waste. And if you're working in the industry, you know that we are wasting too much for this to be sustainable. And that's, as much as we don't want to believe in karma, it's funny. We waste so much, and it just drops the price of our product because it's a healing product. It's not meant to be done this way.
Yeah. And
I think hopefully people will understand that. And if you're with us, you're probably now figuring this out. That this is the yeah. We appreciate everyone for still staying with us, sticking with us, and just keep sharing this message. We'll have more information. We're just going to keep on dropping some of these tactics on y'all, some of these techniques that we've learned. And some of these, honestly, they're not new. I mean, they've been doing aquaponics for 5,000 years. It's been documented in Egypt and Africa, all over the place. We've just gotten away from that. We'll talk more about this Telecom Act, but we've just gone more and more to a mainstream way, especially like with Instagram and TikTok. People are like, "Oh, look at this! I'm doing this off of a whole, dosatron system. Look at all the different nutrients I'm using." But it's like some of these products right here have all those nutrients. You just put them on a soda and forget about it. But we've like gravitated towards I'm going to market it this way, and if it's not done this way, it's kind of offshoot. It's backwards. It won't work, but we're still making products,
Yeah, I mean, just to expand a little bit more on moringa, for instance, we're talking about the tree of life, but you can also use this as a biofertilizer.
Yep.
I mean, not only to keep the body vertical, but your plants. So when you got the nice little garden or whatever, you could do an intercropping with your veggies and put the moringa trees in the middle. It basically is going to put more nutrients in the soil and allow your plants to grow vigorously, just like the tree itself. This tree will grow 21 feet in like 120 days without no problem at all. Now just imagine, so it has this long tap root on it. So it's able to go deep down into the soil and just basically suck up all of that toxic stuff that's in your soil and replace it with more nutrients. So, when you're talking about, like we were talking earlier about red worms and keeping the soil aerated and then they poop, there's more nutrients to fertilize your grow bed. But moringa has all of these different uses, whether it's for the tree provides electricity. A lot of people don't know jack about that, right?
Yep.
But there's villages in Indonesia where it actually provides light the best time of the day 2 to 3 o'clock in Indonesia, where it was funny. The guy was climbing up the tree and he got shocked. He was going up to cut a limb off.
Jeez.
And he decided to stick a electric meter in it. 240 volts it came back.
Jeez.
So next thing you know, the tree is providing light for the residents outside of them consuming it, as a superfood.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the San Diego Arboretum, they put 2 amplifiers on the leaves and the tree starts to sing.
Saw that, yeah.
I mean, so, the quality of life can be improved with this one plant for everybody, 2-legged, 4-legged. It's just a matter of you understanding the power that these special molecules and compounds that are inherent in this tree, called the tree of life. Feeding it to the fish, feeding it to chickens, goats, cattle. It increases milk production by 20%. Then, the coat of the animals start to look really, really shiny and glossy. I mean, and it does the same thing with your organs. It's like when you eat the seeds in the morning, it depending on the flavor that you taste, it's telling you something about your organs, whether it's your kidneys, your lungs, or your heart. You're going to get these different sensations. So it's just a matter of understanding that. But at the same time, this is the era whereby we were talking earlier about cellular agriculture, where our new beginning farmers you can just concentrate on growing, let's just say you want to grow 20,000 pounds of a certain vegetable that you can now turn into a superfood or a byproduct by mixing it with something else, right?
Yeah.
So you don't have to think about just growing the food, think about creating new foods.
Yeah.
Right?
There you go.
And that's where we are, particularly with these millennials and this next generation. You can't live your life on TikTok,
No, you can't.
Instagram. So be creative and come up with some superfoods that are very nutritious, that you don't have to get FDA approval, right? You just doing your thing. The health department may come in and antagonize you for a little bit, but so what?
Right.
As long as you're moving on and creating something that's nutritious, because as long as we continue to consume this GMO processed stuff, our longevity on this planet, we'll be, 50 years from now, we'll be in the same category with Native Americans.
Yeah, we could talk about that. I mean, there's certain tribes out there that don't do anything with us, our culture, and we're kind of in this phase right now where it's like our progression has very much peaked. It seems that way. I mean, I think we can obviously change that course. So yeah, I mean, if you're looking for a solution, if you're an investor, or if you're just someone who is not sure what to do with their life, this is something that you can do. The population is still growing. People want fresh food. They want to know where their food is coming from. So, grabbing 4, 5, 10, 12 people, going and grabbing your grant, doing something urban and local so that you can sell it directly to people. That's how you're going to make an impact. That's how you're going to make your money. Instead of just trying to go into a workforce, getting paid minimum wage, dealing with that. I mean, we all know it's just not healthy. It's just not healthy mentally. And as we continue going forward, we're seeing that we need to have good food. We need to know where our food is coming from, and we need people to grow it. So next generation, here's your call. Investors, here's also your call. If you want to make a difference, if you're tired of seeing the same thing happening, tired of all the madness that's being portrayed in the media, this is a way to turn that noise off.
That's right.
We got people who can help, people who want to help, who have the formula. You just gotta have some faith that maybe you don't know as much as you thought you did, because we're sitting here and learning every single day, knowing we don't know that much at all.
Yeah.
There's so much more to learn. But this does work. This, we're making this work right now before your eyes. I talked to my friend before I came over here from Hawaii, and he was telling me how the whole Filipino culture is huge on moringa. They put it in everything, their food. They use it for it's a huge medical benefit, and we can bring that stuff to every American. That should be a mission of ours,
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of been on this mission with moringa for the last 8 years. Even to a point where I'm going to do an ancestral tree planting on my family's property.
Nice.
And so every member of the family will have a tree in their name. And so if they want to go back every year for a reunion or whatever, you're going to be able to walk through the trail, get a nitrogen fix, maybe eat some moringa leaves while you're in there, and just let the tree talk to you. Because, barefooted, because there's something about, the tree's been around since 2000 BC, so, anything that outsurvived dinosaurs and, things of that nature from way back in the day, man, you got to love it, right?
Right.
And, in creating new food sources, and just being on top of your game and thinking a little bit outside of the box, because, we can grow in shipping containers too. There's multiple ways we could do this. So it's just a matter of having the courage and the mindset that you're a different farmer than your parents were, or your grandparents were.
Mm-hmm. And you can still do all your other fun things that people want to do digitally, because you're not working a giant farm, getting incredibly burnt out. That way is just the past. Commercial farming, commercial agriculture, commercial cannabis, it's all done with a very, very shallow mindset. It's not being approached with any innovation. So, that's where you're going to make your money, is minimizing your costs, minimizing your labor, using technology to your advantage, which is what this does. Soil technology, digital technology, we're trying to utilize all that so that people can, really make the most out of their profits. When I say soil technology, I just mean how we are actually treating the soil, not just by pumping salts in it and throwing it away. It's just not very advanced.
Not at all.
We're not putting any thought into that. That's just how we've been taught to do it. But this way, whether it's using your fish waste, using the fish fish community, or using your plant waste and your plant biofungicide, all the different communities that are in the soil available, that's being very smart about it and using all the tools to your advantage. So, that's what that's kind of almost about it, I think. Kind of went over a lot of it. Back into moringa. I don't want that show to close me before we say thank you again for stopping in. Please support us. We have all these products.
Oh yeah, moringatang.com, continuetofarm.com. Those are some of my links, but moringatang.com, I really want people to subscribe and of course make a purchase, but I'm going to be changing the content every 2 months, so you're going to be up to date on.
I wanted to go over one last talk about Tuskegee. Who would you say was your most insightful moment down there? When did it all kind of start to die in for you?
Where, Tuskegee? Mm-hmm. Well, I guess it would have been my uncle, because he was George Washington Carver's driver.
Okay.
And but once I got that, of course, my mom and her sisters and brothers, they went to Tuskegee, became, well known. My uncle used to be part of the Pittsburgh Courier from Pittsburgh. That was one of the oldest black newspapers. But, Tuskegee's always been, I grew up like less than 30 miles from the campus, so you'd always hear about it because a lot of people went to Tuskegee, in my family and the community. So there was always somebody around talking Tuskegee, Alabama State. And, but even when I was in the military, so this is like 71, 73. When I got out of the military, I had this thing, I would always make Tuskegee's homecoming. That was like a big deal for me, right? To go to that homecoming game. But this year I got out, in 73, when I got out, there was a brother that was stationed in Germany with me, and he disappeared off of the military ground, and nobody knew what happened to him. He was an MP at one point, and so I get out, and I went to the homecoming. Lo and behold, I run into him. He was from Tuskegee, right? And I had been looking for the guy forever, and that's why it was so easy for me to spot him, and I found him. He was at the homecoming game, and he told me what went down. He got into a situation with some folks, and so they discharged him. But things like that. I saw another vet some years later, and then I got to know Dean Hill. I met him at a Veterans Farmers Conference, and I met Dr. Sanjay, and then some years later, I ended up taking the Vice Chancellor, Dr. Raheem Reed from UC Davis, down to meet the president, Morris, who was the current president, right? And that was like a big moment for me, for a country boy out of Alabama to be living in Calabama and then get the Vice Chancellor down so the two schools could link up, right? Through, I forget what they call it, some type of exchange program. So that was like a big highlight at that day, that I went down with Dr. Reed, because, UC Davis at that particular time, they had just got the first black chancellor, Gary Mays, from Georgia, I think, University of Georgia, one of those schools in Georgia. But anyway, he's the head guy at UC Davis, Vice Chancellor, Dr. Reed, brother. And then there was a sister that was in charge of urban ag and I forget some other programs. So the school itself, and it's still, I don't know if it's Dr. Reed retired, but from the top down, you would think that with that type of regime, that it would have some transitional effects outside of the campus, which is like 15 miles from Sac of Tomatoes. But I think they may have started something inside the city, but it was more high-tech oriented, not specifically designed to impact the black culture, right? That was a little bit disappointing, but beyond that, Tuskegee is, a very special school, and I've had the good fortunes of, some cases I could make a phone call, and people, for some reason, they said, yeah, I like that idea, and they was like, okay, what do we need to do? When I had the studies done, that was from a professor. I didn't know him before a phone call, but he was good with it. And then I was going to do moringa planting with another doctor from Africa, Kenya, Dr. Bonzi. And Dr. Bonzi came down to the farm, met with my brother 2 times. He later on had some issues with his back and just kind of went in decline. But I mean, we've we've had this relationship, right? And if I went on the campus right now, nobody would really know who I am, right? But somehow or another, I've been able to get inside that school and do some stuff like I don't know too many other people that took advantage of some opportunities, you know?
Yeah. That's crazy that your family was close to George Washington Carver. What was that like? What was the story like about him?
Well, you know, not a whole lot, but the beautiful thing is Dr. Carver has a museum in my hometown.
Nice.
So, you know, as it turns out, he was the one that introduced the peanut to Houston County, Alabama. That's his like big contribution. Well, I should say the state, not only just for the peanuts, the peanut, but peanuts, because there's different strands, if you will, of peanuts. You know,
right.
Virginia Bunch, and that's the one, the biggest one that I forget some of the other names, but so yeah, Tuskegee has always been a part of my farm life, even though I wasn't farming. Mm-hmm. I knew a lot of people that, and I always go to I make a way somehow to be in Montgomery every November, you know, whether